Hello. Welcome to the In Love with Business podcast. This miniseries is titled Chief Sustainability Heroes and is hosted by Professor Paolo Melina and Melina Shore from University College London, School of Management. Throughout this series, we will talk to sustainability leaders from different organizations and sectors to learn about their sustainability journeys. We will ask them about their career paths, the challenges they encountered in implementing complex strategies of sustainable transformation, and what inspired them along the way. We will also ask what advice they would offer to aspiring chief sustainability officers. Enjoy the episode.
Welcome to this episode of our podcast show. It is a pleasure today to have with us Rob Doepel. He's a sustainability expert with more than 20 years of experience in the energy and sustainability sectors. He's based in London, where he's currently the UK managing partner for sustainability at EY, a role he stepped into in 2022. EY, as many know, is a large multinational consultancy firm with more than 700 locations in over 150 countries worldwide. Rob first joined EY in 2006 as the firm's UK and Ireland energy leader partner. And as an energy leader, he helped the clients realize efficiencies and prepare for the sector's fundamental transformation. Today, as UK managing partner for sustainability at EY, Rob is focused on helping some of the very big companies out there to navigate and accelerate their journeys of sustainable transformation, providing them sustainability offerings and consulting services. Rob, it's a real pleasure to have you with us. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Yeah, great to be here.
Thank you.
Can you tell us a little bit more, Rob, about your background and your path of how you became the UK managing partner for sustainability at EY?
Yeah, sure. As you said there in my introduction, and thank you for that. I started, and most of my career actually was in energy. So I grew up in Australia. Hopefully there's a slight still Australian twang there to my accent, and then moved to the UK almost 30 years ago. And yeah, I was working in the energy sector and got very focused on the energy transition. I think when I started, energy wasn't seen to be that exciting, and now it's probably one of the most, one of the most interesting sectors to work in. And yeah, so I was doing a lot on renewables, both wind and solar and storage and so forth. And then as the story goes, I got asked to spend a bit more time on a broader sustainability offering, and made that tragic mistake of saying to my boss at the time, going, I think we can do more here. And then she was like, tell me more. So I just talked to her about what I thought we could be doing and the opportunities a firm like ours has in this space. And she set me off on my holidays, summer holidays, when it was in 22, and said, have a think about what you want to do then. And when I came back, I said, yeah, I'm up for it. And I've absolutely loved the last few years as I've just sort of broadened out. But I'm very much, as I said, coming from an energy transition viewpoint. But of course, this is a rather broad church sustainability. So I'm coming from that angle, and I've had to go on a fairly steep learning curve on many other attributes of the role.
Yeah. And can I ask you, why you wanted to, I guess, transition into this job? What was kind of motivating you into the position?
Yeah, I suppose I've always been interested in, grew up in country Victoria, where a lot of my friends and classmates were farmers who were always impacted by weather. And obviously in Australia growing up, we had periods of drought through my childhood. My lake that we used to always go and swim in was basically empty for 3 years. It just dried up. So I think when you grow up in an environment like that, you're very conscious of climate. You're very conscious of the environment and nature that you live in. So that's probably always been there. And then I think when I worked through the energy transition, I could see, the opportunity for a firm like ours to make a big impact. As you said, there we're a big organization where, we operate right across the world. We connect with, I always say, with governments, with regulators, with lawmakers, with organizations. So we have a massive opportunity to play a role in changing business and changing society. So I get quite excited about that. So I think when the opportunity came to me, I grabbed it. The other thing I'd say, Pablo, was the personally, I got quite impacted by the Australian wildfires in 2019, if you remember those,
Of course.
which were just horrific. And the scale of that had a real impact on me. And I had people and friends who were impacted by that. And I do think sometimes there's that sort of personal connection that comes. So I think to get truly sort of very passionate and make career choices on the topic is something typically when I ask, as you probably ask lots of people, I should ask you this question, what people say, but I always find there's a personal trigger. And for me, I think that, it was 2019, 2020, they went on and on and on, if you recall, and I think 240,000 hectares of land, which is just a huge amount of space in my country. So yeah, that had an impact on me.
And I guess, being in a prestigious organization like EY, it kind of gives you a platform, to make an impact, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Quite a privileged platform, and a privilege I take very seriously around the role that we can play and the role that we need to play in driving change.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's amazing. Yeah, and I think you're right. Paolo and I have had the pleasure of meeting and interviewing many different leaders from different sectors, and you're absolutely spot on in the fact that everyone pretty much tells us that there's a personal connection and a personal reason as to why they work in this space. So thank you for sharing that with us. So in your role today, as you mentioned, you're working more broadly in the sustainability space, and you work with many organizations and business leaders from across different sectors. So in your experience, what are you seeing as being the most significant challenges facing companies today? And then how are those companies and leaders striving to address those challenges?
We'll start off with a small question, will we?
Yeah, jumping right in.
Yeah, it's it's really, really difficult at the moment. I have I talk to, as you say, I talk to lots of boards, and I sort of talk about being at the crossroads and in the crosshairs at the moment, and I feel momentum's lost, and momentum's so hard to gain in organizations. And then when you lose momentum, it's really hard to get it back again. And that's probably at the highest level. If I say what's the biggest challenge at the moment, it's momentum. And we had momentum. I don't have to look back that long, sort of particularly here in the UK, we had COP26 in Glasgow. There was a lot of really good push for that. Nigel Topping Race to Zero, and organizations were making pledges and setting targets, and that gave momentum. But I think now and then unfortunately lots of events have happened since then, and the agenda is, I would paraphrase it, boards would tell me it was important and it was urgent, and now it's still important, but it's not urgent. And other things have come over the top of this agenda, be they cost of living, interest rates, inflation, energy security, all sorts of things that have now hit us. And now cold winds, Melina, you and I were talking before about the cold winds that have hit us. And I think every organization feels that. So that momentum is hard. It's hard to regain momentum now in this space. Because ultimately there's always that real challenge, isn't there? That there's a real challenge of short-term growth against a sustainable business model. And if you want to operate within planetary boundaries as a sustainable business, there are some really difficult questions you have to ask yourself for a lot of organizations and a lot of sectors around how they operate. And if you can put that off a bit and sort of push it down the road, so it's the next executive team's problem to pick up, that's quite tempting. And particularly, we've got lots of other things that you need to be worrying about at the moment. So I think that ultimately is the challenge now, is where does it sit on that agenda? Where does it sit on the urgency and the priority list of executives and boards? And unfortunately, I'd love to say it hasn't come down, but I think it has. I think we have to be realistic and say, we're at the crossroads, because it's not about making targets now. It's actually about making change, and that's hard, and that becomes real and gritty. And I say we're in the crosshairs because we have got different points of view that are being aired and are getting momentum, and that has an impact as well on organizations' bravery and leadership's bravery to make change.
Yeah, there's that need for that unwavering change when things are wavering, it seems, or leadership, I mean. So when we talk about sustainability, sustainable transformation and digital transformation are often very closely linked and interdependent, as was highlighted at London Climate Week. I know that was one of the topics that was discussed there as well, which you were actively a part of again this year, along with your team at EY. So can you share with us, based on your experience and perhaps even your reflections coming out of Climate Week, some of the examples that you're seeing of how technology is being used and leveraged, so whether it's AI or other, and perhaps share some examples of what you're doing at EY or some of your clients may be doing? And feel free to start off with any reflections on Climate Week first, and then we can discuss the technology piece.
I'm very curious to hear from you, because I did a speech at Climate Week as well, at the AI Summit, and the big potential in the application of, for example, AI in the space of climate action. So I'm really curious.
Yeah, I mean, it was, well, first of all, I thought it was a great week, and hats off to the organizers. I think they had over 700 events, 40,000 people involved and engaged in it, and we needed it. I think we really did, in terms of professionals working in this space. It was quite cathartic at times, sharing some of the challenges that we all face within our own organizations, and I'm no different within EY. That I've got things that I need to change within our business, and it's difficult at the moment. So I thought that was really positive, and I took a lot of personal energy from that. So looking forward to hearing, because I'm not going to go to New York Climate Week. I'm going to leave that to my American colleagues to take the baton from. But we ran 12 events. We had 500 clients through the door here at EY, which was brilliant. So we learned a lot as we went through that. But on the question on technology, actually, one of the sessions, probably my favorite session, Paolo, a bit like yourself, was on AI and IT, and hearing some stories. And the one that struck me, and this is what I suppose probably a slight plug as well, but was an event we ran with NVIDIA. And NVIDIA were demonstrating some of their long-term weather forecasting technologies. And they ran a couple of particular scenarios. One was around, which I found particularly interesting, was Gulf of America, Gulf of Mexico, Gulf down in the southern part of America, and looking at cyclone patterns through that, and with their immense processing power, and their ability to show the output in a very engaging way because of their sort of video game background. They can visualize things in a much more engaging way. Showing the predictability, well, not predictability, but getting better and better at predicting weather impacts in particular regions of the world, was a bit of a mind blower for myself, in terms of the level of sophistication that we have on our fingertips now. But I think that's going to have huge impacts and major changes on organizations, on the whole value chain, on financing, on insurance. There's huge ramifications coming from that, but I think they can only be positive, because we have better information, better data to make more informed decisions. So that was one area. I mean, the other area, I suppose, was probably close to EY's heart, was on, I always have a lot of clients who are frustrated by the level of reporting they have to do, and the reporting activities. And I think there's huge opportunities to use. We are using a lot of our teams at the moment are spending a lot of time building AI models and building automation into a lot of that, to make that a lot less burdensome for organizations so they can focus on the real stuff that matters, which is making interventions that have an impact. But yeah, I thought that the advancement in climate modeling and the impact that's going to have on climate risk assessments, the quality of those climate risk assessments, and therefore the confidence to take action on the back of them, I think will radically change in the near term.
Yeah.
That's one of my frustrations is we do a lot of work in climate risk modeling, and you sort of give them the report, and it's like, okay, great. And I'm like, what are we going to do with this? And they go, well, it's 2040, it's 2045. So if you can start to show things, a little bit closer to home, you can start to show it's not this is how it's going to grow over the next, we'll say grow, this is how things will change and the impact will change over the next sort of decade, 15, 20 years, and make it a bit more real with some of that, bringing it to life with a bit of visualization, then I think that will help us derive more action from clients, from organizations to actually take action, on the back of that data.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely. And no, I totally agree. And I think is the potential that AI gives us in terms of having an impact not only on mitigation but also on adaptation strategies is really great. And also the business opportunities, I guess, that go with that are incredible. I'm wondering, Rob, if you can share with us an example of a successful sustainability initiative that maybe you implemented at EY or with a client, maybe an initiative you are particularly proud of.
Sure. I mean, I could talk about an EY one as well, but maybe I just talk about one we've done with our clients. The thing which I've been really super proud of this one was with some work we've done in the UK with the UK food system, where we brought together around about 45 different organizations right across that value chain, from the big supermarkets at the top, through to distributors, through to the actual producers themselves, all the way down to some of the farming communities, to look at how you decarbonize food in the UK. So big, hairy problem, big, hairy challenge. And of course, no simple answer or no one answer, but by convening all those bodies together, we are able to at least outline at a high level, like what are the key levers, what are the key decisions that need to be made, both from a policy perspective, from a regulation perspective, to enable that decarbonisation of the sector. And when I say decarbonisation, it's to reduce the impact. You're never going to get rid of all emissions, as you'll know. But the thing which I think I take very seriously in my role and as our firm is, and I said it before, but we have an ability to convene organizations because of our size and because of our reach. And I see it it's a huge opportunity for us, but it's also, I feel like there's an obligation on a firm like mine as well that has that power to convene. So I want us to do more of that type of work where, we are a brand that going to get everything right all the time, but I think we have a fairly trusted brand that can bring those organizations together, that they can talk to us knowing that the information will be confidentially held, but we'll share the themes and we can give them a roadmap that allows an industry and a value chain to move forward. And the thing that's been so exciting about that is, and we did that for one of the industry bodies, IGD, who were our client on that program, is even the food companies that weren't involved in that, they were all watching it and they've all seen the output of it. And now they're looking at their own operations and saying, well, as long as if I want to make my changes, if I ensure that I'm aligned to that industry plan, then that gives me a bit of comfort and security that I'm doing the right thing. But B, actually, I know that this is probably the direction of travel, because the triggers from the up top of the chain are becoming clearer, and therefore I know that if I make some changes, then that's going to be beneficial for me. But also, if I don't, then there may be some negative impacts on me as well. So I find that sort of a really great project that has an impact that I think we as a firm could do more of across different sectors.
No, this is I guess a powerful story, and very often we hear about projects of sustainable transformation at the corporate level or the supply chain level. I guess this is a good example of sustainable transformation at the industry level, which is less common, but of course very important if we want to rethink the way value is created and shared in the future. Thank you for sharing that. I understand, Rob, that you're working on a new research campaign, which is focused on non-financial information, including ESG performance data and its role in corporate decision-making and reporting. I understand that this campaign is not public yet, but maybe you can share with us something and kind of give us a preview of that.
Yeah, I'd love to. And thank you. The emotion behind it is all around that, and I mentioned it before, sort of organizations who are struggling with some of the non-financial reporting. So the campaign's all around total reporting, and the concept of total reporting is, in order to make the best decisions and to make the most informed decisions, you need to have both sides of the decision making. You need to know the financial implications, but you also know the non-financial implications. And as a firm like ours has spent decades, if you like, helping clients and organizations get really robust and reliable financial information by implementing processes, implementing systems and controls and consolidations, and then assurance and then audit on those numbers as well to provide that level of quality, integrity of financial information. We need to rapidly build that same infrastructure around non-financial information, because if you're making decisions based purely on financial, we know that you're not going to be making the most informed decisions for in a future world. It's going to be a carbon constrained world. It might be natural resources constrained world. So that element of how do you build your total reporting, and this is quite interesting for the role of finance, I think, because finance in organizations is the custodian of truth. It is the custodian of high integrity data. And if I want really high integrity and reliable non-financial information, so greenhouse gas information, water use information, or nature impacts, then I need that same level of integrity and controls and processes around that data. So our campaign is looking at that as a challenge and seeing where organizations are currently and the journey they need to go on to be really fit and efficient in the way that they capture that, process that, and report that information.
Yeah, I was kind of smiling a little bit while you were talking, because at the moment recording this episode from my house in Italy, where I am for the summer, and in front of me there is my PhD dissertation, and the topic of my PhD was the non-financial performance measurement. And we go back to 2007 at that point. It's kind of interesting that there was this kind of famous article published in the Harvard Business Review. I believe it was in 1996, if I remember well. It was from Bob Eccles, and it was titled The Performance Measurement Manifesto. And it was kind of really, promoting this idea that we need kind of to shift to use more non-financial performance metrics to manage organizations and kind of predict future performance and kind of build a more solid business models. And it seems that we are still here dealing with that problem 20 years later. But I guess there is no doubt that measuring non-financial performance is key in today's business world. So great to see an initiative with a focus on that. Well done.
Yeah,
You'll have
definitely.
to send me your PhD, Paolo. I'd love to read it.
I will. I mean,
Some light summer reading, I'm
yeah.
sure.
Me my full-time reading.
Yeah.
At the time, some of the kind of models like balance scorecards were, quite popular, and my PhD was focused on applying these tools in the context of small to medium-sized enterprises and enterprise networks. But that kind of led me to kind of work on sustainability, because kind of all my research. I guess began during that time, because back in 2007 I met at the time the managing director of the GRI in New York, because they were opening an office in the US to promote the standards. So I kind of moved into the space of sustainability reporting, in 2007, and then I guess from there I moved, into the space of kind of connecting sustainability to strategy. So that was my journey, but I agree that some of the problems that we were trying to solve back then are still out
Yeah.
there, and we need to address them.
And you spotted like it's not a utopia. I mean, triple bottom line's been around for a long time, hasn't it? And there's been
Yeah.
good strides. Let's be honest, right? It is a lot better than it was.
Mm-hmm.
But I think
I agree.
but it's true also that I still look at many business case and investment cases in organizations, and they don't account for non-financial. It's a pure financial rate of return. There's some impact measurement in there, but not a lot. So it's a journey, and there's an element of there's nothing groundbreaking with our research, and there's nothing hugely groundbreaking in terms of the concept. But to your point, it's still not common practice. It's still not the level of quality it needs to be. It's still not as embedded into strategy and decision making that it should be.
Yeah. Well, it sounds like a fantastic campaign that will certainly help companies, I think, because it is a complex landscape, and just especially companies starting out. So I think that's a great tool for them for sure. So
I had a CFO,
yeah.
so I had a CFO say to me about 18 months ago, because we were running a session on EU Green Deal and ESG reporting. He sort of looked at me and said, "Rob, I've been ignoring this for 18 months. I can't, can I?" And I'm like, "No, you can't. It's coming at you. It's coming to finance.
Yeah.
I think it will have a big impact on finance functions in terms of reporting." Yeah.
I'm sure his feeling is felt elsewhere. So that's good though, to have these resources. You mentioned earlier, you were talking about how you feel like your role is that of a convener. You're convening, organizations, individuals, and sometimes we've heard the analogy when we talk about the role of a sustainability leader. The analogy of a conductor has come up as well. So very similar in how you're, trying to get everyone to kind of go in the same direction. So when we think about the critical skills for being a successful sustainability leader, what would you say are the critical skills you need? And then how do you develop and maintain those skills?
What a great question, because I think it's changed, perhaps than what it was even 5 years ago. And I think because the education level has increased. I think boards now are much more informed than they were previously, and hats off to many boards that have spent a lot of time trying to educate themselves and train themselves on these topics. And I do think the role is even more one of influence and transformation than it is of technical expertise in particular area of the sustainability spectrum. And I think about what I have to do within my organization, and a lot of it is you've got to be a good listener. I think an educator, but not and I try very hard, maybe it's a personal thing, is not to be preachy and not to become too evangelical about the topic, but always trying to bring it back to the business impact and the business outcome. And I think being really understanding of that this isn't easy, that this has got rubs and and each point's all over all over this journey. And if you're speaking to different parts of the business, they've got different challenges, different pressures. I think being very understanding of that, but then also being able to, it's back to that convening. It's about influencing. It's about giving some simple messaging around just the track that we're on, and then really using all those skills to try and get commitment and then get action and get resources aligned. So a lot of it is, I think, particularly in big business, some of the most successful CSOs that I know actually come from a slightly different background, but they're trusted in the organization and they know how to mobilize the organization, know how to mobilize capital, they know how to get resources, they know how to get the governance in place, they know how to make change happen basically in a business. And they've got a bit of a brand internally as well, which allows them, and they've got some trust that they can then start to pull on to make some of those changes stick. So as my view anyway, is I think sometimes the more senior you become, the less important perhaps the technical knowledge and technical skills. And we talked before around jargon and the overuse of our acronyms and overuse of technical language. And I think that does have a negative impact sometimes. It sort of puts people offside. And again, if they think that you're pushing an agenda that isn't aligned to their agenda. So it's really that listening around, understanding what's everyone's agenda, and then you can start to find some common ground with some influence.
Right. Okay, and I think that's a great segue actually into our next question, which is like as a leader of a large multinational organization like EY, how do you go about, and I think you touched on this when you're talking about listening and applying it to people's different functions, but how do you go about engaging employees across such a large organization who may not have sustainability in their title, but obviously play a pivotal role in helping the company, drive that agenda forward? So how do you go about engaging those employees?
I think engaging employees is a massive opportunity as a leader, because if you can galvanize the many, they've all got the ideas, and giving them empowering people to come up with changes in the way we operate, changes in business practices, changes in products, supplies, etc., is an incredible source of change and innovation, and in some ways will help some of the other leaders who are struggling with knowing what to do or knowing what the right idea is. So unleashing that innovation of the organization. And we have a thing in our organization in EY called the Eco Innovators, which is a sort of self-managing network. It's now got about 5,000 people globally in it.
Wow.
And they're incredible. They're my internal conscious. They're our activist group, if you like. They shout at us when we do this silly stuff. They want to stop us from flying and all. But it's great because they've made lots of changes to our business, and then they talk about it very passionately. And I do think getting the next generation talking to your executive, talking to my senior partners is super important, because there's a generational impact here. There is something different, that they think differently, they have different ideas. And as I mean, talk about sort of unleashing that, the power in the organization. And if you can be confident that it will lead to something positive, because I think most people come to organization and come to work every day with a good intent to help an organization get better. Sometimes it's unpleasant hearing the feedback, but it's better that they're giving it to you than giving it to someone else or leaving, going to a competitor. And I'm quite lucky in my organization. We're quite a young business. We have a lot of, as you know, we're a great graduate employer, so we bring a lot of young talent in, and they
one of the best
keep us
that
honest.
you see, by the way.
Yeah.
No, that's very interesting. And I mean, one of the challenges, Rob, I guess, associated to sustainable transformation journeys is that they are very long and complex journeys. And, every journey has got its ups and downs, right? I mean, you're in the field of energy. If I, think at the recent, geopolitical, events in the last 2 or 3 years, and the type of impact they had on kind of the energy transition, globally. I'm wondering, how do you stay motivated, and how you motivate your team, when there are these setbacks?
Well, there's probably something in there, having had an energy industry background, because energy industry does work in very long time cycles. They make investment decisions on equipment and transmission lines or whatever it might be. Then they're long-term decisions. So maybe I've naturally had a long-term sort of mindset. But I do, I try. My job is to stay positive, but I have this quote I use to the team sometimes around, you have your ups and downs, as you say, and when you're feeling sick, if you're in a boat and you're feeling a bit sick, you need to look at the horizon. So if you're feeling seasick, you're up and down, you keep your eyes on the horizon, and you start to lose that seasickness. And I think there's something in there for us around, you've got to keep looking out. And there will be bad days, there are setbacks. It's okay to be impatient for change.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's that there's a 1 in 60 rule, I think, with they use in navigation. If a boat sets out from the UK to America, and we just change its course by 1 degree or maybe 2 degrees, where it hits land in the US is very different from where it thought it was going. So I also say we don't have to move organizations 90, 180 degrees, but our job is just to make those small changes, and over time they'll have a big impact.
Right.
And I think sometimes it's hard to see those small changes. So I feel like you have to celebrate them, and you have to recognize them, and you have to take comfort from it, that and be positive about it, because it's hard not to be.
Yeah, no, this is actually, I believe, a very good metaphor that you gave us, because at times what could appear as a small win,
Yeah.
In
Yeah.
the long term, could lead to real impact. So that's good. And I guess in the context of clients, while you were speaking, another thing that was said by the former chairman of Microsoft Europe. I was interviewing him for something else recently. He said, good strategies are built on strong visions. And I guess that's similar to the point that you were making. When there are tough times, you need to have a strong vision, because it give you direction. And maybe your strategy needs to change a little bit, and maybe you're gonna achieve certain things later than planned, but the direction is extremely important in business. So I guess it's a very good reflection, the one you shared. Thank you for that.
Yeah, it's very powerful. And just building on Paolo's question about how to stay motivated. So when you think about the challenges facing the world today, how are you feeling? Are you feeling optimistic about the future, the direction we're going, as we're just talking about? And and are you optimistic about the role companies can play in creating a better world?
I am optimistic. I mean, I use my own analogy. I've had some down patches and have felt seasick at times over the last 6 months. I'm sure we all have. But there's a couple of things that sort of give me hope, if you like. One is the business case does make sense. Like, long-term business case is undeniable. If you look at the cost of energy, it's undeniable that we need to be moving to a more renewable-based model. If you look at consumer choices, etc., it's changing. It won't change overnight, but it will change. And I also have a recognition, I suppose. I've done many surveys over the years around consumer preferences. I'm sure you have as well. And what consumers say and what they do is typically two different things. So my mantra is always, consumers won't make the change. They'll say they want to, but they'll make different choices, typically on cost. Politicians won't make the changes because the political model and cycle won't allow it. So you come back to businesses, you come back to corporates, and I think that's where the opportunity is. And I meet many business leaders who are brilliant and just fantastic visionaries, to your point, Paolo, people who've really got that vision about where they want to take their business. in the right way, and that gives me huge hope. And I look at the financial services sector as well here in London, and I think the money recognises that vision and recognises changes. And whilst there's always going to be some short-term hiccups, and the challenge here is really a timing one, it's around managing the short term. I had an old colleague used to say, you can't go green if you end up in the red. And there is an element there which to be a sustainable business, you have to be in business. So there are sometimes some short-term challenges you have to deal with. But I feel that the long-term impact is undeniable, and politicians will come and go, and movements will come and go. But that path we're on is set. The question really is, how fast will we move on that path, and how big will the consequences be of us not moving fast enough?
Right.
So that's the hope I get. The negative is on that, like, I know we're not moving fast enough. If we knew how to make it, society change and wake up a little bit more, I'm sure we'd all be pressing the button or pulling the trigger or whatever what is that would allow that. But I try and stay super positive in my role, because I think that's important for my team, but also important that we have leaders out there talking positively about the impact we can have, and the better future we can have as well.
Yeah, to keep that momentum going.
And I would like to ask you maybe one final question, Rob, if you allow me. We know that this podcast show is followed by many young people, many people out there who are dreaming a career in sustainability, maybe dreaming to becoming one day a managing sustainability partner at EY, or a chief sustainability officer in a large organization. What advice you can give to someone starting a career in this field today?
I think most advice I give is around building as broader base of experience as you can possibly have. The tallest pyramid is the one built from the broadest base. So I think when you're starting off in your career, it's great if you say, I want to work in sustainability, I want to work in a particular component of that. But actually using every opportunity you have to broaden your base, broaden your horizon, be that the different sectors you might work in, be that the different parts of a business. I love those graduate programs where you end up moving all the way around a business, and we do it in our business as well. And typically when people come in, they say, I definitely don't want to do any work in government. And you meet them 3 years later and they're deep in the government sector, loving it, because they experienced something that triggered something they didn't know they had. So I think that thing around taking and trying to build that really broad base of experience, and maybe back to my seasick analogy, it's good to be seasick. It's good to feel that you're out of your comfort zone and you don't know what you're doing, because that means you're learning. It means you're learning at speed and you're learning at pace. And I think if you can get to a point where you're comfortable with that, and being comfortable feeling seasick, it allows you a mindset of growth, of continuing to grow, continuing to build your knowledge base and your experience base. And I think that mindset is definitely, at certain times, I think to myself, why have I done this? Got myself in a situation again. But I think that does allow you to build the skill sets you need around influencing, around listening, around understanding different perspectives from the experience you have, and the experience that you've built up. So taking those opportunities when they come, when you think you're not ready for it, you are ready for it. If you think you might fail, great, because that means you're going to have to work really hard not to. So take those opportunities and be seasick.
Fantastic.
That's great advice.
Yeah, Rob, it was really a pleasure to have you in our show. Congratulations for the amazing work you're doing at EY. And keep in touch.
Will do. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to this episode. If you enjoyed this discussion, we invite you to like and share this episode on your social media. Enjoy the rest of your day.